Everyone, welcome back to League of Legends DFS Esport Breakdown for DraftKings on June the 18th. Pretty interesting 5-gamer here. We do have the first LPL 3-gamer to look at. I believe this happened once a week, I think every Friday night, so like technically Saturday night in China, I believe. So that's something to keep in mind. We'll go forward. We have a little bit more options to go off of. We can quickly kind of get into recaps yesterday because we do have more games to talk about. We can kind of speed this up a little bit. Sandbox got the surprise 2-0 over Guangdong Freaks. KDF was a decently sized favorite, I think minus 360 or so. I was on them a little bit. I didn't have too much exposure to them just because they were a little bit of a weird pick to go off of. They are actually still getting decently owned. I think the LCK is overall still getting way over-owned, in my opinion. So it's something to keep in mind. I'm probably just going to end up full fading the LCK for the time being. I think they're still too over-owned because pricing is in such a way on DraftKings where it's a lot easier to get in these LCK favorites because they're underpriced. But I think they're underpriced for a reason. Because they don't score much, these games go way too long. They don't fight enough. There's not enough scoring at all. Like, as we could tell, like, I think there was literally 2 10 assist bonuses going on in this entire series. That is not going to cut it. That just is not enough. Like, Prince ended up having a decent score. He went like 14 and 13 or something. No, he went, what is that? That's 10 and 11, 10-0, 11. So what is that? 30 plus 25, that's 55 plus the sweet bonus. That's what is sweet bonus? 25? I should know that. But he had like 90 points or something in a 2-0 sweep as an AD carry. That is not, he just does not get enough there. Yeah, LCK, I'm kind of going back to it. It may be a little bit ignorant to me, I'm not sure, but they're just on the X mark for me. I'm just not going to be playing any LCK for the time being. So, it's going to be a risky strategy maybe, but, it's the way the cookie crumbles, I think. And then in the next one, T1 get away with it yet again. They destroyed and deserved game 1. There's no arguing that. They brought out the interesting Senna Yasuo bottom lane. This is actually really cool and interesting and well thought out T1 bottom lane and team composition. They have a lot of stuff to go in. This is a very solo queue-esque composition. They just have all champions that go in, and it's easily kind of set up with Gangplank ult, and then you just have Wukong, Akali go in. You have Yasuo ult off of the Wukong ult. You have Senna ulting down range, so everybody gets shielded. It's a really decently thought out composition. I actually really like this T1 comp, and I rarely give credit, to T1 in that aspect. But then it comes down to game 2, and T1 did not deserve this win on any planet. Nongshim completely bottled this. The overall state of the LCK, I don't want to make every episode about this, but it is so bad. The region is looking really lost, and especially Nongshim. They've absolutely bottled 3 free victories so far. It is laughing stock. Nongshim is late game. They have no late game decision making at all. Pretty egregious stuff going on there. So I don't know. LCK is not my friend at the moment. Over in the LPL, we did have our underdog come through. JD Gaming, they got the 2-0 over EDG. I was pretty confident and really, I'm not sure what the word is, but pretty, I'm trying to think of how to describe it, but I was pretty far, like, I don't know, I just felt pretty good about the JDG underdog pick. And they ended up coming through, so I feel a little bit vindicated in that aspect. I love when when you just have that feeling that, this price is not right when it comes down to, having these favorites and these underdogs. I did not understand why EDG was a favorite. I didn't understand why EDG continued to get steam, and the number even got better when it comes down to betting on JDG. So, felt pretty good, felt pretty vindicated to get that underdog pick with JDG. They got the 2-0. They definitely were the place to go to when it comes to DK scoring. I believe they were pretty heavily scored, especially in the first game when they had the 25 kill Fiesta. 369 popped off on the Gangplank Kanavi had the double bonuses, missing at the double bonuses. Hope was pretty close. Yagao had a good first game, missing once, and then he was gone in the second game. His score was missing, not to be confused with his support. So pretty good stuff from JDG. They're definitely a team I'm loving to look at for the future. At the end, EDG pretty overrated, I think, overall with how bad they've been playing. They just continuously get overrated because of their winning Worlds last year, but they just have not been the same team this year, and it shows. So pretty good there. FPX ended up taking a game off of RNG here in the third series, but RNG ended up closing back this series in 3. RNG still not looking that great. Again, they were a team that I'm not too high on either. RNG and EDG are both in a similar vein for me. I actually did kind of like FPX a little bit here, but I just thought the skill differential was way too big. I think FPX is maybe a little bit underrated, maybe by me even, especially. They've actually been looking okay. It's gonna be pretty matchup dependent, but they're no longer kind of, I think, on that shit list, if you could, so to speak. They're probably more in that neutral territory when it comes to how I'm looking to bet these teams. When it comes out to team, there's like 3 areas. There's teams I like JDG. There's teams that are kind of neutral, like FPX probably. And there's teams I'm looking to fade, like probably RNG and EDG. So, that's how it breaks down for me. Overall, they just didn't look great in game 1. Really uncoordinated stuff. Way specifically, don't know what on earth he was doing a lot of these times. That post-MSI hangover, I guess, I think that Forest Within said, I actually think it's really coming to fruition here, especially with RNG and a little bit with T1 even. So we can go ahead and look ahead a little bit here. First matchup, LGD V5. This one was pretty interesting. LGD was actually looking relatively decent in that first match. V5 didn't look great, but I still think the skill differential is way too big here. I would expect V5 to be pretty massive favorites here. Yeah, minus 1,000. That makes sense. This line's a little crazy, but not enough to get me going in any other direction other than V5. We'll have to look at who do we think is going to be winning soon and go from there. Up next is Top Esports. I was a little unclear with this one. We're gonna have to be looking at DraftKings scoring and pro activity, and see if the stats tell us whether this is gonna be a good match to target for DraftKings stuff. Off the top of my head, this doesn't seem too great for V5, but it's not bad either. This is a relatively neutral matchup. It'll come down to pricing and that kind of stuff. Up next is Top Esports Invictus Gaming. So this one's pretty interesting. Off the top, we have Top Esports minus 550, IG plus 370. You guys probably already have a decent inkling in terms of what I'm probably thinking about this one, but I'm still not a big fan of Top Esports, and I'm still buying into IG. This may be a bridge too far to go, but so far with IG, they had a close matchup with Weibo, and then they 2-0'd FPX. FPX is looking relatively decent, so we know that FPX is not that bad of a win for IG. For Top Esports, they lost to JDG, not a big deal. Again, I do think JDG is probably like a top 3-ish team, to maybe top 5. And then they beat Team WE. But this, I believe, I want to check the scoreboards here, but if memory serves, I actually think these WE games were kind of close with Top Esports. See if I can jog my memory here. Yeah, no, these were not close. These were not close games. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to remember if maybe these meant anything, but not really. I don't know. I do think objectively there's pretty decent value on IG against Top Esports here. But at the same time, I don't want to be the guy that just perma-fades a team just because I don't think they're that good. I need it at some point to kind of acknowledge where Top Esports is. And I guess I kind of do. I do say Top Esports is like a top 5 team. However, I just think they're probably a little bit overrated, and I think IG is a little bit underrated. It seems like a decent spot to get an IG underdog pick here. I've been pretty impressed with IG, especially their upfront, forward, aggressive team fighting. They do kind of get they do kind of get countered here by Top Esports because I think they're a pretty good team at counterpunching in that aspect. I often make these MMA analogies when it comes down to these League of Legends teams and their styles and stuff, because we know styles make fights, we know styles make these matches, and I think Top Esports actually do kind of counter IG, and that is a big worry for me. I think if IG, so far what they've looked like a forward going, a good press, like forward going team, and Top Esports seem like a pretty good counterpunch team. JDG managed to pull it off because they're much better. They just have really good players in all their roles. I would say IG is a lesser version of JDG almost in every sense. So it definitely seems unlikely that they would win. However, we're talking about a team that's a minus 550 favorite in Top Esports, plus 370 for IG. We've been seeing a lot of these things like happen lately with like a RNG, for example, but I think that's more of like an MSI travel thing. I guess they didn't really travel, but you know, they won MSI. They're not going to be super motivated to start off LPL summer. So I don't know. Off the top here, right now I'm going to put my pick as IG, but this is tough because at some point I need to stop just blindly picking against Top Esports, but at the same time, I genuinely do believe Top Esports is overrated. I think IG is underrated, and I think this matchup is not that far apart. And we've seen a lot more from IG. Like, I know I picked WE against Top Esports here, but we've seen actually a good bit of good, decent skill from IG. So I think that's where the difference is, that we've actually seen some positives from IG, and Top Esports have been, you know, overrated in my opinion. So I'm going with IG as the underdog here. Pretty sizable underdog, and yeah, that'll be that for that one. We'll move on to Weibo versus WE. So we're already seeing some treacherous territory here for WE. They're bringing in Shanks in the mid lane to replace Xie. Probably for now an upgrade. Xie was not playing that great. Shanks we know is not bad, so probably pretty decent there for them. SMLZ, they're coming in for AED. They're getting rid of Xing is no longer there. Wait, is Carson not playing? Oh wow, I didn't even notice that. With V5, Carson's not playing. I just noticed that comment here from this Twitter. I didn't even realize that. I don't look at these, I guess, you know, when you expect them to be. So yeah, it is Xiaolong Bao for V5. That is slight concern that they're having a substitute jungler and mid laner now. Like, that's two pretty important positions. I don't expect it to matter because they are significantly better in every other position, and they definitely didn't seem that bad Series 1. That is kind of odd, though, that they do have Xiaolong Bao and Dream now. I mean, I still definitely think Photic and PP God are much better than Assume and Jin Zhao, but that is a slight concern, maybe. I don't know. Roster's still the good here for top IG, so yeah, kind of missed that one. But back to this one, IG, or back to Weibo WE. Again, this is something I talked about a lot during spring, was when these teams are swapping out their rosters so early on, it definitely feels like it's a really big concern that they're making these changes. Like, for example, with OMG, they're, you know, maybe it is because of circumstances, but either way, you can't ignore too much the fact that they're swapping out their mid laners, swapping out their support. Like, these things matter for WE, especially for these lower end teams. Like, for with V5, it definitely is a little bit of a concern, but we've seen Xiaolong Bao be a really good jungler. We've seen Rich be good for all the last split. Photic and PP God are extremely talented in their roles, so that's why the difference maker here for V5 is not, you know, perma-fade just because they're bringing in subs. But when you're swapping out these players so early on, like Team WE is, for example, then it's definitely concerning. I think they didn't play. I think this is 3 new players, isn't it? Because I believe it was Xie, Xing, and Kadaya, and now they're bringing in Shanks, SMOZ, and Heal. Yeah, it was Xie, Xing, and Kadaya. So they're swapping out their entire mid and bottom lane here. I'm honestly not too scared of going with WE in the future, but this seems definitely a step too far. I definitely, like, You guys know I'm definitely on the fade Weibo train typically, and I'm on the pick WE train typically. But I'm honestly a little surprised Weibo is this much of an underdog of a favorite. I think they should be a bigger favorite. I think if realistically speaking, I think these odds should be flipped. I think Top Esports should be minus 325, and I think Weibo should be minus 550. Like I think Weibo's a much better team here. Then WE. WE looked really, really bad in that first series, and they're already swapping players. That's definitely a concern. I like WE probably in the future when we get a little bit more winnable matchups. Like if WE was playing OMG, for example, I would like WE there. But that's just a weird spot here. I don't understand that. I do think SMLZ is a pretty good upgrade. We know he's a pretty consistent AD carry. I do see some upside there for WE, but I'm personally I just think Weibo's a good bit better here, and it feels a little silly that that line feels a little close to me, and I kind of don't agree with it. So I like Weibo. I like Weibo a good bit here. In terms of kill totals and that kind of stuff, I would expect probably Top Esports IG to be on the upper end of the pace, but they're all three pretty viable, and I definitely like going with all three of these matchups as opposed to any of the LCK ones. So right off the jump, I'm just going to be Xing out all of the LPL or out of all of the LCK matchups, especially for DraftKings purposes. I would expect. I think Genji Hanwha is actually maybe viable, but they're probably going to be a little bit too owned because, like we were talking about earlier, these teams get over owned because of their low prices. You can double favorite up, like if people want to go Top Esports and Genji. I think that's possible with some of these double favorites, and I just don't want to go there. And then I'm never going to be touching Fredit Brion versus DRX at all. We could check the odds to see if there's anything odd going on with them. But yeah, DRX is pretty decent favorite. Genji pretty decent favorite as well. The DRX team slot at 5K, that seems like a really, really good position. We know LCK pace is at an all-time low. DRX and Fredit Brion, these teams play relatively slow also, so I could definitely lock and load DRX team slot. I could definitely see them putting up a good bit. Like for team slot, I would say 60 is a pretty decent start, and I could definitely see this being, and this was a pretty bad performance, all things considered, from DRX. Team slot wise, so I could definitely see them putting up, maybe upper 60s, maybe even 70 if the games go long enough. So I like DRX team slot at 5K. I rarely talk about that, but this is a notable, pretty cheap spot there. And that's a pretty good way to get unique as well. Maybe save you a little bit of salary to make some different stacks work. So that's something to keep in mind. I definitely like DRX team slot one off there. We'll talk about the teams here. Again, we're just going to be looking at the tail end of LPL Spring for now until we get a little bit more sample size. I probably want like 3 series sample size from these teams before we start looking at them in summer. So we have IG, LGD, Weibo, V5, Top Esports. Who are we missing? We're missing a team here. ALL, BLG, EDG, FX, WE. So overall, off the bat, we could see V5 and LGD are towards the top end. They do not play they do play each other. So looking pretty good for V5 right off the bat. We'll look at losses. Typically, that's how I like to view these as tiebreakers. I like to see who dies the most in losses. That's a pretty good start. We could see Top Esports towards the lower end, but IG are towards the higher end of deaths, so maybe you can play some Top Esports, but I still want to get in some IG. I'm not too concerned about these low death totals in Top Esports. I still think they're probably going to be battling a good bit. But LGD, top of the deaths, when they're losing, this is actually a pretty high number, especially for such a low game time there. Let's see, for wins, yeah, V5 are up there, IG's up there, not that great for Weibo. Okay, so yeah, there's definitely some info. I mean, that's a little bad. I mean, these sample sizes aren't the best, but I definitely like locking and loading V5. Those are some good numbers that we just saw there. Wonder if, I mean, Dream is only 78. Xiaolong Bao is only 72. I mean, they're pretty expensive. It's going to be tough to get them in. I think they're the most expensive, like just about every spot. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. But I'm still liking going with some IG. I'm not too scared for sure. I just thought they played really well. Specifically, Shun, Yuakai, like Wink, Shin Liu, sorry. Uh, I think the big problem is definitely Zika versus Wayward. I've been pretty big on Zika and pretty not that high on Wayward, so um, it definitely feels tough there. If Zika comes back to form a little bit here, this is going to be pretty good, and I think that'd make a good extra additive to IG here. And then Weibo WE, I'm not a big fan of this one, but they are pretty cheap, like Weibo is. So it's something to keep in mind for sure. I definitely think I like going on Weibo here. I don't know, maybe they're going to be like the team that's a little bit forgotten about, but if we look at, I need to stop closing tabs because I keep just reusing them anyway. But if we do look at Weibo's matches so far, you know, the Shy has been pretty involved in their wins. Angel had some good scores on his Ari. Huanfeng seemed a little left out, so maybe that's something to keep in mind. I think they are playing pretty heavily towards topside with the Shy and Angel. Maybe that was a matchup thing, and Zika seemed a little bit targeted, but Huanfeng not that great so far. Let's see, Weibo's second series. Nothing to gain from here really. I mean, they're still trying to get the Shy on these carry picks, so pretty decent there, but a little bit better numbers from Huanfeng. So I think pretty much a lot of these players from Weibo are viable so far. Let's take a quick look and see like condensed stats. LPL summer. Let's see. We have Weibo V5. IG's played twice, right? Invictus Gaming. Who are we missing? LGD. WE. What do I keep forgetting a team? Top Esports. So it looks like only IG, Top Esports, and Weibo have played twice. Okay. Okay. All right. We'll just quickly look at players here from Weibo. Filter teams, Weibo. So this is just a 5-game sample. I wouldn't go too crazy with it, but looks like On, Angel, and the Shy all have pretty crazy numbers. Huanfeng's been there as well. So definitely all of them are viable. I did notice SOFM's numbers are pretty low. He usually is a relatively supportive jungler, so there definitely is viability in looking to get SOFM not being the one in your stacks. That's typically an odd way to go. People usually have their jungler in those stacks. But maybe that's a way to go about it. Like, I don't like doing this typically, but we can try just for example's sake, looking at something like this. Maybe Xiaolong Bao, Photic. Ooh, man. Something like that, for example, would be a pretty intriguing build. So yeah, that'll be it for me today. Maybe that's a way you can avoid the Top Esports IG stuff altogether, and maybe just make another secondary lineup with IG and just make it small with a couple dart throw lineup, entries, and just consider that money written off because IG are big such underdogs. But that'll be it for me today. Best luck to all of you guys. Hopefully you get a little bit more intriguing stuff. Actually, we'll look at, before we go, we'll look at all the stats from all the players and stuff. This is going to be a little outdated. It is from last split. Weibo Gaming. Do I want to add IG? I guess we will. And then of course the V5. Kill participation, rookie, Photic, Angel, Shun, Yuakai, PP God, Karsa. I mean, Xiaolongbao was close, but 2 games. Huanfeng, I mean, it says Lucas, but this is Xin Liu. Zika towards the bottom, the Shy towards the bottom, but the Shy's been a lot more involved this one, so I don't know. These stats feel a little outdated just because of how things change so quickly. So hopefully we'll be able to get enough samples to start using some recent stuff. But you know, based on all that, we'll call it there. You know, before I get too off track and off the beaten path here. So that'll be it from me tonight. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Should just be another regular 4-gamer, I believe. But it's actually a pretty interesting slate. I'm pretty excited for this one. There's a couple decent spots. Remember to double check LPL rosters before you guys lock in your lineups. Just double, triple check this stuff. It's always the worst feeling when you create a lineup and then after it's live you realize you forgot a substitute or something like that. So keep it in mind. We do have Xiaolongbao and Dream in for V5. Don't think that if you are going with WE, for example, make sure you're checking in with Shanks and SMLZ and Heal instead. Just double check your lineups. Make sure you got the starters in. You know, keep that in mind, and that'll be it for me today. Best luck to you guys again for the 4th time, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow.